We're facing a rising crisis of obesity. In order to deal with this problem, we need to understand the causes of obesity.
USA Today actually wrote the sentence, "Science hasn't yet figured out how to solve obesity." Ted Kyle concurs, saying, "We don't know how to blunt the rise in obesity because we don't know precisely what the factors are that are causing it." Yes, what could it be? What? Damn it, this is a hard one.
Bill Maher was mocking a group of research scientists who recently met to share their results on the study of obesity. Here's an article. It's an opinion piece. Scientists don't agree on what causes obesity, but they know what doesn't. There's no consensus whatsoever about what the cause of it is. According to the author of the article, the 3-day meeting was infused with an implicit understanding of what obesity is not, a personal failing. This is the theme of the author's article, that obesity is not a personal failing. Obesity is not the result of laziness, gluttony, or sloth. In stark contrast to a prevailing societal view of obesity, which assumes people have full control over their body size, they didn't blame individuals for their condition. This New York Times article brought a strong response that science has been corrupted by political correctness. The world's top obesity researchers came together and couldn't agree on anything except the idea that fat people are not responsible for their own problems. Political correctness has killed science. Someone else responded, "I think people don't put enough emphasis on the fact that the main reason you're obligated to treat fat people as an oppressed category is the need to protect fat women from hurt feelings." This is an important component of political correctness, is that you don't hurt people's feelings. Feelings are more important than facts and more important than objective science. The scientists were only looking at the external factors that cause obesity. They were remaining within their fields of knowledge, which is dealing with external factors. It wasn't their purpose to discover the more inner psychological factors or to study the individual being. They were sticking to their fields of knowledge, like the endocrinologist that concluded carbohydrates cause fat, the biologist that carbohydrates and fat in food cause overeating, anthropologists looked at the hunter-gatherer societies who ate a lot of carbohydrates, the physiologists who pointed out the factor of ultra-processed foods, and even the ethologists who pointed to an external food insecurity as causing overeating. These scientists were not in the field to study the human being or the human individual and their response or their personal responsibility. It was the author who drew the broad conclusion that all these external factors also included individual responsibility, which I don't see that connection at all. The materialistic view is a study of external conditions. We have to free ourselves from the materialistic view to understand the human being and how the human being can change. Rudolf Steiner says how we can free ourselves from the materialistic view, that everything is caused by external conditions. Every change has to be made by human beings, and that therefore every condition that's brought about by the social order arises from human thoughts and feelings. Once one has this thought firmly in mind, one can free oneself from the materialistic view that everything is brought about by external conditions. We can't apply the materialistic view to understanding the human being, because the human being can make choices and decisions from within as autonomous, free individuals. The author is recognizing obesity research as being obesogenic. Here's someone's comment. Political correctness has made obesity research obesogenic. Japanese are thin because they reject the idea that people are not responsible for their weight. They do not accept diversity in body sizes. They emphasize the importance of self-control. What are obesogenic environments? The UK's National Institute for Health and Care Excellence has put part of the blame for obesity on obesogenic environments. An obesogenic environment are environments that encourage people to eat unhealthily and not do enough exercise. There are always strong external factors that want to prevent anyone from doing what they believe is right. There's always resistance. It's part of the struggle of being a human being. To achieve your goals, you're going to always meet resistance. I did a search on obesity, and at the top of the list was this ad, Obesity Contributing Factors, The Science of Obesity. So I went to this site, Rethink Obesity, and they list the factors of obesity are classified into environmental, societal, external, and genetic, internal. So the internal factors are genetic. Where's the human being? This commercial site is exploiting the materialistic view that everything is determined by outside causes for profit, because the more they think we're weak, incapable human beings that are completely manipulated and controlled by outside forces, the more we have to submit to higher authorities, other experts to tell us what to do and to save us, in effect, because we can't do anything for ourselves. There are those who promote this view so they can take advantage of people. We have the science of obesity. What about the science of freedom? If we want to learn about the human being, we need to learn the science of freedom, which you can find in The Philosophy of Freedom by Rudolf Steiner. The science of external causes isn't going to tell you anything about a real human being who originates life from within, from their own individuality. Now we get down to the real belief that underlies this view that everything is caused by external factors. They don't believe in free will. And the idea that people have a choice doesn't even make sense, given that there is no scientific reason to believe choice exists in any free will sense of the word. This is just strict father moralism. In other words, there is no free will. There's only patriarchal moralism. See, now we're starting to see where this is going, where these beliefs are rooted in. They're rooted in political correctness or the new woke ideology that denies anything beyond the material external causes, that denies any individuality or freedom, and blames everything on some kind of a patriarchy. But we go way beyond this superficial view in The Philosophy of Freedom. Ethics depends on a strong will carried by ideal intuitions that achieves its goal even though the path is full of thorns. It sees in the all-around development of the human being a true individuality who is his own master and the assessor of his own value. Individuality is something that is developed through the development of disciplined thinking and learning about moral intuition, moral imagination, and moral technique, all laid out in The Philosophy of Freedom, on how you can be an empowered individuality and achieve your goals. You can create idealistic goals that will inspire you and empower you to be successful. Of course, you will develop a mind of your own. You'll develop free thinking. And those who would rule, those who would be our authoritarians, are not supportive of free, independent thinking, which threatens their power. Now we come to the conclusion of this opinion piece, where the author declares their theories, however diverse, made one thing obvious, to me at least: as long as we treat obesity as a personal responsibility issue, its prevalence is unlikely to decline. She concludes that people are helpless. If we rely on them, forget about it. They're not going to be able to improve their lives. Many have responded to this opinion by saying, BS, I've been fat, I've been jacked, which means to be very fit. It all comes to personal habits. Here's a view of somebody who's done it, who's overcome obesity through self-development. The author continues with her opinion Until we see obesity as something that's been imposed on societies, not as something individuals choose, the fat shaming, magic hacks, and bad policies will continue. Until we stop blaming ourselves and one another and start focusing attention on environments and systems, the global obesity rate will continue its ascent. It's systemic obesity. Gee, I wonder where that view came from. Just more of the woke ideology that everything is systemic, everything is somebody else's fault, everything is a result of our environment, and we're helpless to be controlled by outside factors. Of course, we need to take this into consideration, but the woke ideology takes it as the final conclusion because they don't believe in individual freedom. They don't believe in individual empowerment. They believe we're just oppressed victims of our surroundings. It's very pathetic. But who is Julia Belluz, who wrote this article? It says she's a health journalist. Julie is the senior health correspondent for Vox. Vox is rated left-wing by an independent review. The reviewer noted that Vox's content often argued in favor of more government spending. If you're a believer that everything is determined by external causes, well, then you're going to be a believer in big government to fix the external causes through regulation and government programs. Since the human being can help themselves, we are dependent on the government to save us. Policies should be made to alter or regulate our environment, like outlawing junk food marketing to kids, banning school vending machines, and making neighborhoods more walkable. Now, who's going to want to exercise or take a walk unless the neighborhood is more walkable? They talked about changing the food system in ways that also address climate change. Oh, now we've drawn climate change into it. Now see how they're talking about trying to save the children. That's how they get the first step is we're here to save the children, and then the regulations expand and go from there. But they always use something that, everybody thinks we should protect the children from junk food marketing, and everybody would like to see nicer parks to walk in. So they start with the easy stuff that they think that they can get a lot of support for, and then expand into a huge, oversized government that regulates every part of our lives. Here's where Julie really makes her individual contribution to the development of culture, to our language. She presents the term individual choice bias. I looked up this term and couldn't find it anywhere else. I don't know if she originated it or found it somewhere else, but from what I can tell, this is a new term. Instead of viewing obesity as a societal challenge, the individual choice bias dominates. People are simply told to eat more vegetables and exercise. So we have a real problem in our society. It's called individual choice bias. If anybody believes that people should be making their own individual choices, that's a terrible thing. It's a prejudice. It's a bias. How dare you? I would say that this comes out of an extreme social collectivism rooted in materialism. To come up with a term like individual choice bias as being something bad. Collectivism seeks to stamp out the individual, and materialism believes that there's no such thing as an individual. It's a delusion. We're all conditioned to think and behave according to our groups, according to our environmental surroundings, according to our culture. So this is a very extremist view that Julie is putting out there, and the New York Times is publishing. Someone comments, this logic would mean never blame individual failures for anything. This same ideology is then applied to racism, murder, crime. You can see how this view brings sympathy that nobody's really responsible for everything. Everybody's a victim. Everybody's oppressed by their environment to be the way they are. Can you imagine something more damaging to society than this kind of ideology? if you think about it, project into the future where this will take society. If we follow this, if this continues to be spread throughout our culture, this kind of thinking, the complete elimination of personal responsibility, where empathy, kind of a naive empathy, dominates everything. Never hold anybody accountable. Lower the standards. Forget about excellence. Forget about merit. And now we arrive at where all woke cultural Marxism ends up, in that the problem is America. Obesity is systemic along with all of our other problems. The reasons that matter are cultural in nature. They are Americana to the core and are systemic and long-lasting. Away with America is the final conclusion. Everything woke concludes with doing away with America and replacing it with some kind of, socialist utopia? As I continuously say, the solution is to be found in the philosophy of freedom, in the development of the individual to empower each of us to be able to achieve our goals, to be able to be successful in life. This can only be done through individual development. The group cannot do this. Society cannot do this. Self-development is up to the individual. And the philosophy of freedom is a path to self-development.